Hello, everyone. I wanted to take the time today. In our classes, in our lessons, in our prompts, we talk a lot about our external journeys, our travels, and what we gain from getting out of our comfort zone, exploring new places, new cultures, new art. And it is so important. I think it's so relevant for our own growth. But I wanted to step back and talk a little bit more about our internal journeys today. Without exploring yourself, knowing your own internal journey, all of the travel and all of the exploring is not going to bring growth. We have to look internally first. So I think we have to remember to continuously work on ourselves, and to really explore ourselves, because we are going to change through time. We're going to evolve. Our journey is going to shift and grow as well, as long as we're willing to change and grow with it. So I'm going to be working today in my Delusions journal, and I'm going to be working with some gouache, some acrylics, and I kind of put my color palette here to the side with some collage elements. I've already put some clear gesso down. Feel free to work on mixed media paper, any substrate that you want. And I'm starting to collect some symbolism for my own inner journey. Some things that are personal to me, and then finding images that really kind of represent that inner journey. When I thought of this project, I really wanted an image of someone holding their heart. Now, if you want to make it even more personal, work with a photograph of yourself. I found this photo and it really stood out to me. And it felt like she was connecting to herself. There's a little bit of sense of forgiveness, maybe for herself and for others, which is something, I think is a constant in my life, to continuously be working through that. So I'm going to start clear gessoing this down, but start really thinking of your inner journey. So travel, what do we learn from travel out externally? We learn to grow in so many ways. We expand our sense of self. We get out of our comfort zones. We stay open and compassionate to different viewpoints. So how can you take that same perspective, that same viewpoint, those same questions, and bring them into your inner travel, your inner journey? I think that in order to grow, in all the ways listed above for travel, we must spend the time traveling through our own emotions and innermost desires. Think of these questions. What is something new you can discover about yourself today? That is, think hard on that. Maybe it is something you once knew about yourself but was lost. Travel within, see what you feel, what feelings come up. How do you talk to yourself? What are those voices saying? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are you distracted? Are you in the moment? All of these things can really, really help you connect to your inner journey. So I'm really going to keep pondering these questions while bringing in my own imagery that kind of represents my own journey. Just using this clear gesso to mat it down. I had a shaper tool as well, which can be really beneficial to, really push the collage down, but to not lose. Sometimes when you put clear gesso on, it gets a little murky over the image. So I encourage you to look within yourself and the same set of eyes that you would at a new place or a new destination or a new country or city. We come almost with these rose-colored lenses to places we've never been. We have an open mind, an open heart. We're willing to learn about our surroundings, whether it be the environment, the arts, the culture, the people. So maybe start from scratch with yourself. You may think you know yourself well, and maybe you do. Maybe you've done a lot of inner work and self-care. But maybe you can discover something brand new, or maybe you're new to getting to know yourself again, or you feel like you were lost at some point. So finding that inner roadmap. We all have likes, we all have passions that are unique to ourselves. So connecting to that map, your intuition, your guide within. So I'm going to bring in this literal element of a map to kind of represent that, to represent following my own self and looking internally versus externally for the things that I need most in the moment. I think the very first part of our inner journey is self-awareness. And this can bring up good and bad things. It can bring up, maybe trauma or things from your past. It can bring up the feeling that maybe you aren't on the path that you want to be on. So I think having the awareness is the first step, and then taking the steps to lead you in the right direction that you want to go. And that is completely personal. None of our paths are going to be the same. None of our answers are going to be the same. Some answers are much harder, or solutions are much harder than others. Maybe you've been wanting to quit a job, but you need to pay your bills. So how do you find time maybe for your art after work, or carve out just a sliver of time each day to do that, if that's just for an example. So having that self-awareness and then the acceptance of your thoughts, and again, giving yourself some self-love through the process. So for me, this flowers are starting to represent not only the feminine, but I love wildflowers, the wild untamedness, the feeling of growth and change. And I heard in a podcast about in Vedic, in a Sanskrit phrase, and I won't remember exactly what it is, but it was your inner sky. And we hear a lot about your inner universe, your inner world. But this inner sky really stood out to me and inspired this prompt. So I am going to essentially create her all into a sky. So she's like an embodiment of sky. So, her whole body, I'm going to kind of turn into this blue sky. And still working with my color palette. I basically have a bright blue, a dark like Jenkins green, a blush pink, a burnt sienna, and a yellow ochre that I'm working in. But feel free to work in any color palette that you want. But I liked how they kind of were complementary, but they didn't quite mesh together. But the colors just stood out for me for this project. And sometimes I don't know the answer to that until I start creating. If you are thinking of your inner self and nothing comes up and you have no idea where to start, I would encourage you to start with some of those questions. And maybe you can write down your thoughts. Maybe things will come out from writing that you didn't even know, or look to Unsplash or Pinterest and grab images that are just standing out to you in that moment. And you don't always have to know the meaning or reasoning why you're drawn to them. That is part of our self coming out, our intuition, our voice within that saying, you're drawn to this or you're attracted to that, whether it be animals or patterns or different flowers. There might be something in that moment that is symbolic that you might not even know why. So with that bright blue, I wanted to bring in this blush pink, kind of as a contrast, yin and yang of the feminine and masculine. And then a little bit of dark green to start bringing in some shadows. And then I felt I really wanted kind of a drawing aspect combined with these collage elements. So I'm going to come in and I'm rolling my pencil and creating kind of these poppy petals that kind of look almost like crepe paper, but to me they're layered and it kind of symbolizes just those many layers that we have within ourselves and within our lives. But there's something about having that really sketchy look that's almost unfinished is some of my favorite artwork when I see it. You know, even a painting that half the face is unfinished or part of it's drawn and part of it's painted. Or when I see collage or art journaling, I love to see part line work and part collage and part painting. So that's kind of what I want to bring into it. And also, again, representing that unfinishedness in my own life, that my path isn't finished. I'm growing, I'm changing, I'm evolving, just as these flowers come to life and then they die each season. There's going to be parts and elements in my life, in my inner journey, that seem really important now that may not in 5 years. And I brought in that green. I love that color. And I'm going to start working on the sky. I could collage this into here, but I really want to hand paint the sky. I'm going to use this photograph just as a reference. And I'm just using my white gesso. So for more of the transparent areas, you can just add water and kind of do more of a wash. And start to really look at where the light is hitting the clouds, depending on the photograph. And you can see in this, close to the horizon line, there's a lot of white, and then you get kind of more wispy, more transparent clouds up to the top. So it's heavy on the paint at the bottom with a lot of white, and then again, a little bit more wispy and transparent as it goes up. But really, really wanted to bring in this element of the inner sky that stood out to me. And I've been thinking about ever since I listened to that podcast, really thinking about what our, inner universe looks like and what we were born with and then what we've acquired through our lives. We can acquire so many different things by our experiences, and that changes our thoughts and our perspective. But there's so much of us that we're just born with, that, we have our own interests, our own passions, that are already within us, from the start. So I think that's always so fascinating, what we bring to this world and what we kind of absorb from the world. And I think it's important at different stages in your life to go back to the things that you were born with, and kind of feel out how they can combine with the things that you have acquired. And I'm liking how that's coming out. It's also giving her this sense of lightness, almost for me personally, just letting go of maybe some baggage and showing up in this new form with a little bit more lightness. And so I'm going to come in and bring these clouds. I have a bigger brush here that I'm kind of rolling and creating these cloud-like feeling in the background as well, to just kind of fill in this left space. I like the openness of the left side, and I purposely put her on the right side. Again, it just felt right in the moment, but it felt like if I put her in the left, she would be in her past, and if I put her in the right, it's like she had moved beyond her past into the next stage, into her future self, which it was really important to me to have that feeling. So think about that when you put your placement down and where you put your images, whether it's smack dab in the middle or off-centered, or high or low, above or below the horizon line, or to the left or to the right, can really have a drastic change on the message that you're trying to put out there. So coming in and bringing in some darker elements, starting to paint over these flowers and bring them to life and make them my own. Collage has this, stage that it feels so choppy and not put together. And I love that process because it slowly just turns into your own artwork and starts blending better. And it's a beautiful start to finish to work with collage elements. So pastels, I'm doing a little bit of blending on her face. Again, trying to blend back those collage elements. So I want to come in and start really bringing in my own painting at this point. So bringing some paint and possibly some pens into her face, and just kind of blending it a little bit better, making it my own. I love the look of all collage, and I love the look of painted collage. So decide which direction you want to go, or maybe you want to paint the entire piece and not work in a journal. So follow what path is best for you. So if you're struggling to even start, maybe you've gone through the questions and you're still struggling with your own inner journey or your own inner travel, maybe you need to get out of your art studio. Sometimes for me, I can think about these things while I'm on a walk, or when I'm on the trail, or when I'm in a yoga class, or maybe I'm doing some journaling, just some writing at a coffee shop, in a different environment. So, think over the questions outside sometimes of your art studio, or sometimes just getting some collage elements that are calling out to you and then starting is the way that helps me. Sometimes I have no idea what direction I'm going to go until I start creating. And I think that is the true beauty of art journaling, is that you can just kind of start and play and see what comes up for you in your art journal. For artists, as writers write to put their thoughts down. Artists, a lot of times I find, are visual, and they need to visually put their emotions onto the page. And that's the way that's easiest for most of us to express ourselves and why we're drawn to the arts. So I'm coming in with a very fine brush and bringing out some different colors into these poppies. Poppies have different meanings depending on where you are, what country you're in, or what culture. But you see it a lot. You can see it as an eternal sleep or peace. So I find it really interesting where, even in The Wizard of Oz, it makes the characters sleep forever. So for me, it's almost like maybe there's parts of your life that you were sleeping, or you weren't aware of yourself or your needs or your wants or your desires. And it's kind of waking up from this sleep. And so that is kind of, I was drawn to the layers of it, but I love that idea of her, waking up from her sleep and then, coming into this sky and this openness, this vastness. So, if you've taken any of my classes, I use a lot of symbolism, especially in my art journals. There's a lot of deeper meaning. Sometimes, it will mean nothing to the viewer, and other times maybe it will connect to them in a different way. But know that if you are using imagery, that it should mean something to you. It doesn't necessarily mean something to the viewer, but I think the viewer feels the deeper sense to it once you have a deeper meaning behind your artwork. And, art can be joy, it can be just pure beauty, but I always find the ones I connect the most with are truly showing something deeper and more meaningful to either me or to the artist. So I thought the green might be dark enough, but I'm coming in with some Payne's Gray to add even a darker value to this piece, and framing her face a little bit more to really define it. I love that the sunshine is kind of coming from the right, like it's glowing on her. So I want to kind of define that a little bit more with this dark hair around her. So once it's dried, I love coming in with my drawing tools, my pastel, my white gel pen, my micron pens, to really create these fine details and accentuate kind of the face and collage elements. But I really hope that through this lesson, you do some own exploring of yourself. We focus again so much on the external travel and adventure, which I love so much and I think provides so much growth for us. But again, we wouldn't have any growth in our travels if we don't first have growth and within ourselves and do our inner inner journey. And often we need to keep going back to ourselves and figuring out what we need to grow into the person we want to be. I'm going to finalize here by just adding some details. I hope you share your work in our social media or our Facebook community, and stay tuned. I am going to continue to have travel and art related prompts for you, and art fundamental lessons as well to help you on your journey. If you want to explore more, you can always take one of our travel related art classes that have more detail and more technique. But I hope this prompt has inspired you to connect to your own inner journey.